Preparem os tronos, as espadas e os dragões, porque House of the Dragon está chegando para sua segunda temporada. Por isso, eu conversei com o elenco da série mais aguardada do ano. Emma Darcy e Olivia Cooke me contaram tudo sobre a volta a Westeros e como a treta entre as famílias Targaryen e Hightower irá aumentar no nível surpreendente nos novos episódios. Emma também falou sobre o relacionamento de Rhaenyra e Daemon, que parece abalado após o final explosivo da primeira temporada. Já Olivia revelou os planos de Alicent para vencer a Guerra dos Dragões. E que planos, hein? O resto do elenco também deu spoilers de como seus personagens vão influenciar na grande guerra que está por vir. Vem comigo assistir!
Many weeks ago, my lord husband was alive, and the realm was at peace. On his deathbed, he knew the realm would never accept a queen. Rhaenyra's supporters will believe what they wish, but Viserys wanted Aegon to succeed him.
Hey, Bruno.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Very well.
I'm great. So, how did you both feel coming back to these characters, having seen the public's reaction to the first season?
Yeah, look, it was encouraging. Like we were all very aware when we shot the first series that in many ways it kind of shouldn't work, or it shouldn't. You know, it's hard to return to a world that's loved as much as the world of Game of Thrones. Like, it's hard to follow scale global success like that. It's a really difficult tightrope, I think, returning to the same site but needing the new series to have a sort of language and an identity of its own. Whoa. Hi, Valerian. But, you know, so to discover that was well received is like lovely, and I suppose it felt like being given a passport to then like go back to Westeros, you know, and like I guess have a sort of a new, like, just a confidence in inhabiting the space for the first time.
And without any spoilers, we can say that both your characters experienced similar loss throughout the season. And where do you think Rhaenyra and Alicent can relate to each other? And what's the biggest difference between these two characters? You consider motherhood is their soft spot?
I mean, yeah. Motherhood is you know, one of their soft spots, but I think also it's this frustration with not being believed by the men around them and not being taken seriously, as the men are so hormonal in the show and they just go off and do whatever the fuck they want, whereas we're trying to sort of rule and be measured and have like patience and just think about the realm as a whole, even though, you know, we're coming from it at sort of varying degrees.
I think like grief is a big motor in the show this season, and that's happening on like sort of both sides of the family. I don't know, I think there's something interesting in, like, certainly for Rhaenyra, I think like Alicent would be the person that she would look for support from historically, like, you know, in the case of her mother's death, like Alicent was actually possibly the only person that she could share that bereavement with, that she could seek sort of comfort from. And I wonder if perversely that instinct kind of remains, even though the chasm between them is so great. I wonder if there's still a kind of sort of fundamental longing to seek some sort of solace and comfort here.
And in season 1, we see Daemon and Rhaenyra really form an alliance and bond together, which made them as a couple super popular with the fans. But this time around, things seems to change, to shift a little bit. How would you describe your relationship? You described their relationship in this season, and what was like working with Matt Smith again?
Yeah, I mean, beautiful working with Matt. Always a joy. I think we have like a really like lively time on set when we work together. He's like a very instinctive and playful actor, and so I really cherish it, because, like, you know, it's a big old machine that we shoot in, and when you do get to work with people who have like such sort of energy and curiosity for like reinvention, it's kind of a tonic actually when you're working that much and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, I think as grief does for many people and families and relationships, I think it can isolate people. I think Rhaenyra kind of isolates herself actually at the top of this series. I think she becomes somewhat dislocated from her friends, family, allies. And I think there's a sort of journey that she has to go on, kind of back to the living in order to, take on the crown.
Mm-hmm. And we will get to see Rhaenyra and Alice face off again.
Couldn't say.
Don't know.
You tell me.
I don't know.
Oh, and Olivia, at the beginning of the season, Alicent seems to be in constant internal conflict. What's her mindset and what we can expect from her this season?
I mean, she should be at the height of her power. She's just put her son on the throne, but then she quickly realizes that she no longer has the ear to her son, both of her sons, Aemond and Aegon, anymore, and she's sort of adrift within the castle, and she's also in massive amounts of paranoia because she was spied on last year by her closest handmaiden, and so she has sort of shed the help around her, and she walks through the castle like a ghost. And I think as Rhaenyra is ascending, Alicent is like losing her sand a little bit, her power, she's sort of waning.
They wish now not for the good of the realm, but for the satisfaction of vengeance.
Plot against the king, and I will pay it back 100 times over. I'm as fearsome as any of them.
You have no idea the sacrifices that were made to put you on that throne.
On the first season of the House of the Dragon, it was immensely successful and won over more fans for this universe. How did you both feel coming back to these characters, having seen the public's reaction to the first season?
Yeah, it was so exciting, I think, for us especially, because we'd had such a little taste of what it was going to be like in season one. It really felt like we knew exactly what we were stepping into, and we'd had time to make friendships and really like get into the world. So it was just like pure excitement, I think.
Yeah. I've said this before. It's like it's less of the first season where you're really nervous and just you want to make a really good impression. In the second season, you come back a bit more confident. You know everybody. You're a bit more comfortable with everybody. So there was a bit of pressure there, but it's all good pressure, and it's really exciting to be back.
And Bethany, Bella and Rhaena are known as the Dragon Twins, and we are super excited to see them flying with their dragons. How would you describe the relationship between these two sisters in this season?
This season, we really get to see what, in an ideal world, you would have seen off camera, which is like what happened to them in that time jump in the 6 years where they went from little versions to big versions. And actually, Baela and Rhaena were separated for a lot of that time. Rhaena got to go and live on Dragonstone with the family, and Baela went to ward with Rhaenys. And I think there was this real like older, younger sibling dynamic that built between them, where Rhaena was quite, just like in the way that most younger siblings are, they look up to their older siblings, and it felt like Baela got to do a lot of the things that Rhaena didn't. And I feel like we really got to explore that this season, and we got to show kind of like the fractions between them, but also the things that they love about each other.
Harry, your character is going through immense grief and at the loss of his brother at the beginning of the season, but what seems to motivate him to be more active in the fight against the Greens? What's his mindset during this season?
Well, I think it's a lot of things. Obviously, revenge is a massive part of it. But I actually saw somebody write something where it was like, Jace's motivation is more than just for the throne. I think it's the fact that he feels embarrassed because he is a bastard and he is being completely mugged off right now. So I think that's a huge part of it. And yeah, he's just got all of these goals to sort of fulfill, but, you know, he's not really being allowed to do them because, you know, it was good enough that Rhaenyra said that he can go on this journey alone. So he wants to impress her, you know.
My uncle is a challenge I welcome, if he dares face me.
We will prevail and bring forth peace. But you must accept that the path to victory now is one of violence.
We finished first season with that theme, and was a huge blow to the Blacks' cause.
It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. It was an accident, right? It was an accident.
Well, I have my theory about it. You said recently that Eamon will hijack the show and turn it into a horror movie. And can you tell us a little bit about that? And what can we expect from Eamon this season?
Well, I think that sequence at Storm's End at the end of season 1, he very much does. You don't expect him to be with the Baratheons at the end of episode 10. And so when Larys does come face to face with him, it is a shock. And, you know, when he takes off the eye patch, he's got the sapphire gemstone underneath. And then when he takes flight over the skies of Storm's End, you know, and it's like a horror movie. You know, it's like those jump scares with Vhagar when she comes screaming out of the clouds. It is scary. And, yeah, season 2 is going to be a lot more scares.
I can imagine. Phia, without giving any spoilers, we see a huge moment for your character happening at the end of episode 1. Something that the fans were really curious to see if it come to life on screen. What is it like to film that, and what do you think the reactions will be?
Well, it's an interesting one to film. I think from an acting perspective, you can put a lot of pressure on yourself doing something like that, which I just really try not to do. But the irony is that, you know, you're acting with very, very kind people who are not doing kind things in the scene. And so I have to personally kind of have a thing where I'm like, I want to hang out with those guys, but I think I need to go and sit by myself for a bit and read my poems. But the audience reaction, I really hope they're surprised. I'd love for that to be a response. Yeah, I just really hope they're surprised and that it's what people want it to be.
And Daemon and Aemon are in a lot of ways similar. They are both warriors, ruthless, and they both yearn for power. What do you think are the key difference between these two?
Aemon is that little bit better.
No, that's the answer.
No, I mean, so much of Aemon's, you know, his image has been cultivated from this idea that he has of a young Daemon. Not necessarily the truth, but like what he perceives that young Daemon to be. And, you know, so much of Aemon's appearance with the Targaryen blacks and the long, you know, golden locks, it's very young Daemon-esque. And it's because Aemon idolizes Daemon. You know, he really wants to be him, but at the same time wants to better him.
Yeah. What about the relationship between Aegon and Aemond?
The relationship between Aemond and Aegon. Well, I think Aemond thinks that Aegon lacks the perseverance. You know, while Aegon was, you know, squandering his inheritance, Aemond was studying with the Meisters. He was training in the Red Keep Yard with Criston Cole. And so he really does feel that Aegon lacks the perseverance to be king. And, you know, as even though Aemond is the second son, he very much believed that he should have been treated as the first. And he wasn't.
For the one true king, Aegon!
So Lord Larys was in one of the most talked scenes in this first season, and he seems to be back with as much hunger for power as before. What can we expect from him during this season?
He's sort of spreading his tentacles even further this season. He's exerting influence on other people and climbing the ladder, as it were.
And his relationship with Alicent seems to be even more controlling this time around. What do you think is his role in her storyline and vice versa?
Well, his relationship with Alicent is complex, but I think he's always had an eye on the power above Alicent. Alicent is a path. Alicent is access to an even greater power for him. So I think that's what he uses her for. And in terms of, I don't want to speak for Alicent, but I think Larys is still a threat for her, as he is for everyone, really.
Eu não sei vocês, mas entre verdes e pretos, eu sou a favor da treta. A segunda temporada de House of the Dragon está disponível na Max e na HBO. É o poder do Dracarys.
All my life I've endeavoured to serve both my house and the realm. And somehow none of it matters.
Hold to your courage! For the one true king!